The Rad Dudes with Cody and Garrett. Can't get any better than that. The Rad Dudes with Cody and Garrett. Hot dog.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We have a huge show today. The Rad Dudes are back. You guys have been clamoring for it. You've wanted it. The Rad Dudes are finally back. And today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. Cody, what's going on, man?
I'm doing well. I am excited about this. We're going to dig into a genre that I believe is just this beast of a subgenre. You and I, we dug into the 90s thrillers earlier this year. And I was thinking, man, this is the biggest subgenre back in the day. But no, this genre that we're getting into today is another beast in itself. And it's something that I think you don't really think is until you start talking about it. Like, I went on this rabbit hole with all these different movies, and there's, like, we're going to talk about a lot of them. There are so many that I'm sure we're not going to even touch on.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's definitely a genre that I've always loved. And it's one of those things that I really don't even know what it's called, how to describe these movies. But basically, it's like these high school horror movies, kind of not in the vein of horror, but more like these thriller movies, things that take place in schools, either a new kid gaining revenge or these gangs just fighting each other in school. Teachers are involved. I mean, there's so many of these movies, and they're really cool. And they kind of branch off into, you know, like I said, gang movies. And all of a sudden you've got like horror elements added in. So this genre can kind of expand pretty big. So there's so many we can talk about, but we decided to maybe like talk about our favorite 12 or 12 really cool ones that we really enjoy. And then throw in some other like alternates that maybe are just kind of mixing this genre that we think need to be talked about. But we couldn't do this alone. We could not do this show alone tonight because, again, when this has to do with a lot of these with like gang warfare, right? Like these gangs like fighting each other in these schools. We knew we needed another gang to kind of feud with the Rad Dudes when it came to this genre. And I didn't know any other gang, a two-person gang, a tag team that would really fit what we're doing here. And I found two punks on YouTube. And that is the Movie Punks. We got Davey Deathray and Foz Ra, and in the house, boys. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Guys?
What's happening?
Thank you for having us.
Man.
We're excited to have you.
You're welcome, man. It's one of those things that we've kind of talked about doing some collabs before. And, you know, I know Foz has done some stuff for the Radpack before. So it's really cool to have him here on this channel. And I was excited when I saw that you guys kind of came together and started doing this little Movie Punks series, I guess you would say. And I think it's really cool. And I think it really matches with like what me and Cody are doing. And I think we're going to have a fun time tonight. So before we get started, why don't you guys let us know like how this collab came about? Did you guys know each other before YouTube? I have no idea.
You want to take that one, Foz?
Well, me and Davey grew up together. I found Davey, I think through maybe your channel, Garrett. I'm not really sure, but we just found each other and started commenting each other's videos. And it was like, did we just become best friends? I think we just became best friends moment. And we're doing a monthly series over on Davey's channel, Davey Deathray, where we're doing the Movie Punks. Once a month. We just did Repo Man, and we got Return of the Living Dead coming up in July. Davey?
Yeah, it was right at the beginning of my YouTube journey. You know, not many people are, you know, watching and commenting and all that stuff. And I saw, you know, Foz had commented on one of my very first videos. So went and checked out what he was doing. And I was like, man, I really like this guy's personality. I wish he would make some more content. And then I kind of saw him, you know, posting around being like, gosh, I kind of want to get back in the game. And I was like, dude, you should do it. Like, the toughest part about this whole game is just doing it. You know, it doesn't matter. You can always raise that production value and all that kind of stuff, but just get out there and start using your voice. And then, you know, we just started talking more and more. And it was like, yeah, let's, we're both really into punk rock. We both love horror and film in general. So it was like, let's find some movies that have like a punk rock edge and have that kind of be the focal point of our monthly show. So yeah, I mean, Return of the Living Dead coming up on the weekend right after the 4th of July. It's the perfect time. And you could argue that's the most punk rock movie of all time. So really looking forward to that one.
Hell yeah.
Oh, that's awesome, man. That's cool. And it's funny because I've like known Foz for a long time, but I knew him more or less by name because, you know, both being, I don't know, descendants of the Dead Pit brand, I guess, in a sense. Like that's kind of I've always heard of Foz Rotten before, and I didn't really get to know him until I started my channel. And I know Fozzy, you were doing stuff like a long time ago, early days, and then kind of got out of it, got back in it. You're doing music, and you know him and I the same way. Like we kind of bond over different music situations that you know we were both parts of growing up. So it is interesting that how it's kind of full circle right now.
Hell yeah, man. It's so fantastic being here. Whenever we started this with Davey, I was like, we're going to have a lot of fun because when I get into something, I really get into something, and having Davey with me at least once a month keeps me like,
it keeps going.
Keeps
you in line.
For sure.
It makes me think, it makes me plan. I'm happy, man.
Yeah, and Davey, you've been busy on your channel too, man, for sure. I feel like you've been super busy, and I'm not sure how long ago you started. I know we recently connected probably a couple months ago. So is this kind of like your first year right now?
Yeah, I started in August. I went to Mad Monster last year on July 10th and saw Dylan's New Nightmare at like the pre-screening there. I guess technically my first video was probably middle of July. It was just on my phone, but like August is when I was like, all right, I'm actually going to do this. I had decided to also become an associate producer on It's Me Billy Chapter 2, the Dave McRae film that's being made right now. So a whole bunch of things kind of lined up for me where I was like, I'm going to get more involved in this community. I'm going to get out there and get my voice out because I'd been playing music and, playing in bands since I was like 13. But when that chapter kind of closed in my life, there was this gap where I didn't have a creative outlet. So that can kind of bum you out when you're a creative person. So I was like, all right,
100%.
Yeah. Like in the interest of my mental health and just like, I'm a huge YouTube audience member. I love the medium as far as like, you can get all sorts of information. I'm a big nerd about a lot of stuff. So I watch a whole bunch of different kind of content on YouTube. Horror movies and film in general are something that I'm really passionate about. So kind of dove into that realm. But yeah, still within my first year, trying to get to that 1,000 sub mark by my anniversary. We'll see if it happens. But I'm loving just having things naturally cultivate, getting to know the content creators, the people within the community. Everyone has been so supportive and awesome. And then, of course, relating on a different level with the audience members that sometimes I just chat with them in the chat and then other times they hop on my stream. So it's been really awesome. And I just can't wait to see what the future holds.
Yeah, I do want to give a shout out. He has a show every Wednesday night called Late Night with the Davey. I was actually on his debut episode. It was a lot of fun.
Yes. Yeah.
Great episode. Great episode.
Well, thank you. I also want to shout out Foz, man. I'm always listening to Boom Bop. Is that what it's called? Your song?
Boom Bap.
Boom Bap. That is a song called Boom Bap. Go download it wherever you can.
Boombox.
Yeah. I listened to it earlier today.
Yeah, for sure. So this is really cool. And like I said, it's cool to see, in some sense, you kind of remind me of myself, Davey, because like when I started this thing, I was like, I got to go all in and I got to try to stand out and I got to try to, because I felt like at that point in time, I was kind of late, but actually, to be honest, I was kind of getting in when everybody was getting in, kind of thing, like that end of 2020 type of there's a whole crop of people that came out around 2020 because we were all so
YouTuber,
bored, right? Like we were all so bored, so it's like everybody started making channels. But you are doing good stuff, and I think that your late night show is cool. I like the fact that it's in segments and it's not just like something like this, right? Like I like the fact that it's like, okay, it's like if you're watching a talk show, like the first guest comes on, they leave, and the next one comes on. I like that. It's different. I think that's pretty cool. So if you guys haven't checked that out, definitely go check it out for sure.
I'm pressuring him to be as Andy Richter pretty soon. I want to audition.
I didn't know if you were going to be the musical.
That'd be great.
Yeah, the musical, or at least be the Glenn Humplick. Is that the guy's name from Tom Green show?
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Oh, that was great. Oh man, yeah. And if anyone out there is a content creator or you're any sort of creative type, those are the folks that I'm interested in having on the show. So whether you're an author or a musician or a YouTuber. Yeah, that's who we're looking to just give exposure to, kind of share what people do, and also just goof off a little bit, have some fun. For sure.
It's a great way to grow your channel too, man. It's a great way.
I sure hope so. I have a lot of fun doing it. And like, you know, I felt like there was a little bit of a void there. Like no one was really doing that late night thing, at least in the middle of the week. So I was like, well, you know, this is just a good way to kind of stake a claim in a spot. Like I try to do my best as far as like, you know, not stepping on other people's toes. Like if they do something that I really appreciate, it's like, yeah, I want to find a good, you know, consistent weekly recurring show that doesn't, you know, try to overlap. You know, let everyone in the audience be able to enjoy everything they can. And I think on YouTube,
it gets hard, man. It really does. I mean, that was my big thing too. Is I was like, you know, I always tried to avoid, like if I looked and saw people were live, I'm like, oh, I'll wait and go on. But it got to a point where it's like every night you go on and everybody's live. You're like, I just got to go on. Like I can't worry about this, because then all of a sudden your content starts to lack because you're trying to be too respectful, and it's like you just got to go and people will figure out what they want to watch. I mean,
Garrett, I fall asleep all the time and pop up Garrett's live, and I'm like, okay,
dude. Like with my schedule and stuff, like literally, like that's kind of my thing. Like I started like that rat up all night because I literally would start my streams sometimes at 11:30 because that's the only time I had free. So it was either I do something or I don't. And sometimes if I get home and like that's either I go to bed at a normal time or I just stay up an extra hour and try to just cram something out. And it's actually worked out pretty well because, you know, it's grown quite a bit at that time. So I think it's expected that, you know, something like that. But my biggest sometimes issue is that because I don't know when those days are going to happen, sometimes I'll know like an hour before stream time. So I'll like, you know, share it on my Instagram and then just go live and just hope people come in, because it's not like it was something that was on, you know, on a schedule or anything like that. So, but it's, again, it's super fun. It's a great time to really interact with my viewers and chat, because it's just me. It's kind of low key. I might have a couple things to showcase or a topic, but like I can get to everybody at that point, where sometimes we do shows like this or, you know, live shows with Dead Pit and stuff. It's you know, it's hard to get to everybody. So I think it's a cool way to kind of break it up for sure.
And you doing the late time, like, yeah, it's late for like people in the East Coast, but people on like the West Coast, like that's like, you know, it's like 9 o'clock for them, 8 o'clock for them. So they're just sitting down watching or laying in bed. You know, it's a good time for everybody.
That's me.
I've noticed that late
same with me.
On the East Coast has a lot more people from the West Coast coming in because of what you're saying. We'll be over here. It's like midnight and there's 200 some people on a stream, and I'm falling asleep.
100%. That's exactly what I think it is. Because you guys, Cody, you and Davey are both West, right?
Yeah.
Now, were you guys at the same Dylan's Nightmare premiere?
We were, yeah.
That is so funny.
Yeah, but we didn't know each other. So I mean, I'm sure I saw him, and I'm sure he saw me, but we were just strangers. So you don't really like, you know. It would be funny to go back and watch probably like sitting right next to each other or something.
Yeah, it was a veritable who's who there at Mad Monster. I saw all sorts of folks, so I'm sure I saw you, Cody, because I saw like the Scaredy Cast guys there, and Braden and Destiny were there, and then, you know, just got to meet Dave and all that kind of stuff too. So yeah, it was
I was signing autographs. Everyone's like, "Oh, he has 300 subscribers." And
like, there it is. Well, and that's what I'm hoping with, like, I'm hoping like as things naturally grow with the channel, you know, like what you were saying, Garrett, like I won't have to worry so much about like, hey, if I just want to go live randomly. I think that's something that you just earn through that YouTube journey, you know, as the subs grow. It's like, then you can, you know, it's like, all right, well, whenever I want to, it's cool. And the people that will show up will be there, you know, that you got your faithful folks. And it's, I think that's one of the great things. Like for me, it's like hanging out with a bunch of friends. And like you said, Garrett, you know, being able to pay attention to everyone in the chat, get to everyone there. I think that relationship is really important.
Yeah, I think that works out well, especially like I said, because if I didn't have that and do it at that time, then, you know, a lot of people that are tuning into the shows and the chats can get kind of crazy. And it's hard when you've got, you know, multiple topics to talk about, or, you know, a couple people hosting the same show. It's hard to get to everybody. And I want people to, you know, feel more connected. So I definitely utilize those types of shows to kind of do that. But again, tonight is going to be cool because, again, this subject, and I'm going to talk to you guys about it because this subgenre, I've always asked, like, what would you call it? Revenge thriller? I don't know. Like, it's revenge in a school. These all takes place in school. So, like, what would you guys call this?
I used to just call them teacher movies, even though not all of them are like based on teachers. I used to call them just teacher movies, and like just like like Boys in the Hood, those things. I used to call those street movies or hood movies, but that's not really the correct term for them. But that's when I was a kid in the '90s. That's just what I called them. But and like when I was saying earlier, I went down this rabbit hole. To me, I thought like this genre was like a mid '90s kind of thing, where it was just like through the '90s, like like something like Dangerous Minds and the Big Coolio song got this going. But no, it was like, like it started in like the early 80s and it lasted all through the 80s until like the late 90s. Like I feel like when Columbine started, then they kind of switched things, like they kind of calmed down, switched things up, and maybe made movies kind of like The Faculty, where it's like, okay, well, there's a pretty good chance that there's not going to be an alien running around a real school kind of thing.
100%. I think you're right on. It went a little bit more supernatural at that point than realistic, is what like they kind of did in the 80s and early 90s. But like, yeah, I mean, you're totally right. It really just exploded out. Now, before we went live, we were talking about it, and Davey brought up a couple movies that not necessarily on our list, but these definitely are similar movies to what we're talking about. But these almost could have been precursors to what we're exactly going to talk about today. Now, one of these I've seen, one of these I haven't. So, Davey, if you want to bring up a couple movies that you mentioned that you were like, I think these really kind of, got the balls rolling for other movies like this.
Yeah, I think there was Stand and Deliver with Edward James Olmos, and that movie was 89. And then there was Lean on Me. I don't have that up. That was probably right around the same time with Morgan Freeman.
Was that late in the game? Because I feel like unless that movie takes place.
Lean on Me did take place earlier on because it's based on a true story.
Okay.
So it was 89 as well. It was 89 as well. Edward James Olmos with Stand and Deliver. He was nominated for a Best Actor Oscar. And I think in a way it's like, so, of course, class of 1984, which we'll talk about, and a few of these others came along before those. But I think this is where, like the feel-good version of the genre had kind of exploded into the mainstream. And then after, this happens all the time with a genre, right? It gets like popular in the mainstream, and then you kind of have like the exploitation that follows it, or like the direct-to-video series or whatever. So some of those where it's like, well, in Lean on Me, he's locking up the doors and everything. So like the bad kids can't get in or out, and then in something like The Substitute or The Principal that we'll talk about later, things get ratcheted up as far as what the character is willing to do to make their point. So I think it's just kind of an interesting sort of thing where it sort of morphed from this, new teacher comes to a hard-nosed school and they're tougher than the kids respect them, and the kids get better. And then there's all sorts of friction. So yeah, really cool that, to just think about that this subgenre comes off from something so legitimate.
Right. 100%. And, luckily, I have never lived in an area like a lot of these schools are in. I don't know if any of you guys can relate to any of this stuff, but like, the first movie I want to think of is to me, I think it might be the earliest one on our list here, and that is Class of 1984, and that came out in 1982. And I think out of all of these movies we're going to talk about today, this is probably my favorite, or at least one of the two. I just think this is just it. When I saw this for the first time, it blew me away. Just because, again, I am intrigued by this new teacher starts in a hard-nosed school and tries to kind of create order, but these kids are so bad and been so bad for so long that he starts to get himself into trouble with these kids instead of helping them. And I really do think that this movie, this is a raw movie. Like there's scenes in this movie that like this goes beyond what a lot of these other movies do, like big time. So everybody knows, I think, that watches my channel, that I am a huge fan of Class of 1984. I just met a couple cast members at Chiller Theater Convention a couple months ago, and I was so excited to meet them because, again, I've just loved this movie for so long. I think the first time I ever saw this was when Anchor Bay put out like the DVD. It had a really cool slip cover. It had like Class of 84 and like this purple. Then when you took it off, you saw all the punks kind of standing there. And like we talked about before, being into like punk rock music and the hardcore scene and stuff like that, like I'm always drawn to that look. So when I watched this and then I saw, Roddy McDowell in it from Fright Night. I was like, okay, this is cool. Michael J. Fox is in this. I mean, it's crazy. So like, to me, I was like, this has got so much stuff in it that I really like. And, you know, watching this all the way through, I think totally it's just a fantastic movie. And not only that, you got Alice Cooper doing the front song on this movie as well. And I just think such a cool movie. And I'm curious to see, you know, if you guys agree with me. Maybe you find it goes a little too far in some areas, maybe not. So what are your memories with this? So Cody, like, do you remember when the first time is you saw Class of 1984?
Actually, yes. It was when Shudder came out. It was on Shudder, and I saw it for the first time, and I was like, "What is this?" And it was really. And then, you know, you're watching it, and it throws me off to see Michael J. Fox. First of all, I'm like, "Wait, what?" And I'm like, "What year is this? This is 2 years before," because he looks a lot younger, and you know, you can tell it's him, but it's just, you know, it's just funny to see him in that. And I was just like, because I'm a big fan of another movie we're going to talk about later on called The Substitute. So that's like the movie that I like. And this kind of was like The Substitute, where it's like this teacher who was just kind of fighting back. But like you said, this one goes to places where you're just like, wow, that's pretty extreme. But I'm a fan of that because as as time goes on, things get watered down for the most part. And then, you know, once in a while it gets spiced up again and then they go even harder. But, you know, me growing up with the 90s stuff, going back and watching these 80s movies, it's like, oh, wow, they meant business back then, especially in Class of 84. This is probably one of the, like, this is probably like when you were talking about doing the stream, that's the first movie that came to my head was Class of 84.
Yeah, 100%. And it's funny because like a couple of these movies on here are movies that ever since I started my channel, I wanted to do something with these movies. I didn't know what, because to me, like a lot of these movies needed a little bit like bigger coverage or whatever. And I still may go into it a little bit more, but it's just one of those things where I think it was just, you know what, let's just do it now and get them all out of the way so I can finally talk about these movies. I feel like I got Mel in here. What's going on?
Yeah.
I think I just discovered I have.
Are you late for a train?
I feel like you're at a train station.
I feel like you're in the cart right now.
That's you,
The
Paz?
first time I swear this is the first time I've ever heard the train here. I knew I had railroad tracks, but I've never heard the train until
dude,
now.
that was loud, man.
He steps out back or whatever. There's just tracks like right in his backyard. Like, oh, there they are.
As long,
down, find the train track.
As long as Christopher Lloyd's not jumping off that train, you should be fine, man.
That's true, 100%. Now, Fozzie, what I can imagine you liking this one, Foz. I can imagine this being something up your alley. But hey, thrill me. Let's see.
I've been waiting to tag in on this one. I gotta say, first and foremost, this is one of my favorite subgenres of fake punk movies. No one in this movie is actually punk rock. Know what they're doing. I'm sorry if anybody was, but it didn't come off that way to me. It's 1982. New wave is popular. That comes from punk. Let's make them look like some punks, and then like they get extra dirty. It's like when you watch 21 Jump Street and they go see fake TSOL, and like Jason Priestley has a mohawk and his name's Tober. It's like this. That is this movie. These are not real punks, but they're just crazy out there. There's grape revenge, we'll put it like that. There, by the end of it, it becomes a slasher film, you know, where it's all revenge and slasher. And this has more to do with a slasher film from '82 than it does like a crazy wild in the streets punk rock film. But they just use that punk rock aesthetic so well that especially when you're coming up as a young teenager loving punk rock, you go immediately to it. Like I found it when I was like 14 or 15 in the video store, and I was like, this guy's a mohawk. I'm watching this. And then you watch it and you're like, oh crap. Because out of all these movies, it's probably the one that goes the most extreme.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And you're right. Like I was going to say like how horror adjacent this movie really is, because, you know, in that last final act, I mean, it really gets horror-esque in there. And it really does just takes things farther than, you know, when you're watching and you're kind of seeing what's happening to these kids and all of a sudden, you know, people are getting knocked off and you're like, oh, wow, it is turning into something like that. And it becomes, you know, how can we do it either gorier or messier, you know, each time around, and you kind of watch a lot of what happens to a lot of these punks, and it's just a great story, and it flows really well to that final scene, because, you know, this teacher's kind of got pushed to his limit when he really did just try to help these kids. And it's just done really well. Now, I'm not sure, Davey, I know when we talked about doing this show, there was a lot in here that you're like, oh, do you know what? There's a lot I can dive into here that maybe I haven't touched upon. Now, is this something that you had seen prior to doing the show, or is this something you watched specifically for this?
Specifically for this. So yeah, I mean, it's, definitely got, like you guys had touched on, that hardcore element. It just seems like a lot of those 80s movies really kind of got, the potential to have some ugliness was definitely there. But, like Cody was saying, it's a product of its time. So it is interesting to go back and revisit some of these movies that, if they were made today, definitely wouldn't be made the same kind of way.
No way this one was. Not
saying that it's something that I necessarily look for in a movie, some of those elements, but it is nice when for me, film is all about being immersive. So it's like, whether or not I'm comfortable with something going on in a movie, it's like, okay, I'm in it for that experience. So they can put me in their little world for an hour and a half to 2 hours, then I'll just buy into the whole thing. I didn't know before even, diving into this too, that it's based on a 1954 novel that was also turned into a movie back in looks like 1955 with Sidney Poitier.
Oh, wow.
Blackboard Jungle.
Wow.
So it's basically like an updated version of like that kind of story.
I didn't know that was supposed to be that. Wow.
I didn't either.
Yeah, I knew. I had read a little something that it was like an influence, but now as I've been diving in a little bit deeper, and yeah, it's based on that novel. So really interesting too to be able to take something that's 30 years prior, ish before this film came out, and sort of give it that update. Like Foz was saying, like New Wave had become big, so you can kind of exploit like the punk aesthetic and everything, like the fashion part of it.
New Wave.
Sure, exactly. And people can look punk but still be attractive. Well, relatively speaking, at least Timothy Van Patten can look attractive.
Yeah, he was. He had a good look in this for sure.
I love Timothy Van Patten. I think I'm a big Mystery Science Theater 3000 guy. So when I see him pop up, I automatically think of Master Ninja with Lee Van Cleef. Those are two of my favorite episodes of that show. And something that's like, even though those movies aren't good, the Master Ninja ones, I've always felt like Timothy Van Patten, he does have like a really, a good sense of charm about him as a performer and really able to give it his all. And crazy enough, I think he won Emmys he directed a whole bunch of episodes of The Sopranos. So Timothy Van Patten, not only was he involved in the gang antics of Class of 1984, but then got involved in the mafia antics of New Jersey, a couple decades later. So kind of comes full circle there for him.
Cool.
Yeah, that is crazy. I knew that he was doing a lot of writing and directing and stuff like that now. I've never seen The Sopranos ever. So, I never put two and two together, but I mean, I knew he was still doing stuff, and that's why like I have never seen him at a convention or anything, because he's still doing things like on a regular where he probably just is too busy to do stuff like that. But it would be super cool to meet him. And he was also in another movie. I could be wrong, but I think he was in Zone Troopers maybe, which is a pretty interesting movie. I'm pretty sure he was in that, but that was the only other thing I saw him in. I've never seen those other ninja movies that you're talking about ever, which is surprising because I remember for a while I was like, I want to try to find more stuff that he was in. It was a TV show that they just, once it failed, they repackaged the episodes and tried to make it look like a movie. Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. But, Sho Kasugi is in those episodes as well. Cool. Lee Van Cleef, who's a legend and is, especially in the old Westerns and all that stuff. Yeah. Some good old schlocky fun. So something like 1984, Class of 1984, right up my alley for sure. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it was directed by Mark Lester. And it also, too, it was written by Tom Holland. And going back to what I said about Roddy McDowall and Fright Night, you can see that link is there. And it seems like Tom Holland's one of those guys that every time I see that his name is slapped into something, I love it. And it's just random, but it is for some reason. I'm just like, I dig the movie. And then I look and I'm like, shoot, Tom Holland had something to do with this. I know. Yeah. I always, that's how I am with Walter Hill. It's like, I'll like something and I'll be like, Walter Hill. I was like, no, okay. Like, yeah, but yeah, same with the
Tom Holland, man. I'll watch something and be like, man, he did this as well. In my mind, he's just a Child's Play and Fright Night guy. Yeah.
Like
but
Psycho
so much
2.
stuff. Psycho.
Psycho 2.
See, I didn't know Psycho 2 until later on. That was it, I just.
So yeah, he's got a lot of good shit under his belt for sure. But that's Class of '84, and like I said, like that one to me is the reason that this show is happening. I've wanted to talk about that for so long, and I'm so happy that we get to bring this up kind of first in this little subgenre that we're speaking of. And to me, this one doesn't take place completely in a high school. It takes place in school at points, but when I always think of Class of '84, I don't know why. Maybe it was because Anchor Bay put out this DVD as well back in the day. I always felt like this was a double feature. And I'm not talking about the sequel to this, which we'll get into, but this is another movie from '85, and it's called Tough Turf. And this is with James Spader in it. I mean, this has an all-star cast. I mean, you've got oh my God, Robert Downey Jr. is in this.
Yeah.
You got Kim Richards is in this. Like, I mean, there's a pretty stacked cast in this movie. And I absolutely love this one. This one's about James Spader. He's new in town. He just moved in. His family's like a pretty wealthy family, but he's a troublemaker. So they had to kind of move towns because he kept getting in trouble in school. Well, he's joins this new school, and he's the new kid, and he ends up kind of digging this girl. We'll come to find out her boyfriend's like the head of like the bad boys of the school, the gang of the school. And you know how that usually turns out, not good. So then this becomes this gang wants to go after him. And then because he's kind of like that troublemaker kid, like he's so willing to fight back. So it just becomes that, that mix through the movie. And there's a lot of elements about this that I really love. It's, like I said, it takes place in the school. He's that new kid. It has to do more with him rather than any teachers. You got the gang element in there. Everybody's dressed really cool, really 80s. The music aspect of this movie is really, really good. They go to a concert in this. And I'm trying to think what the name of that band is. Fozzie or Dave, do you know what the name of the band is that plays? It's a big name at the time from because my uncle's a big fan of this person. Do you remember who it was?
I know the one that was featured is Jack Mack and the Heart Attack. I don't
know those guys.
Yeah.
What's the other guys? He played in the dance or the punk rock club where Robert Downey was doing the drums.
Yeah, he was playing the drums. Yeah.
I can't believe I'm forgetting this. Basketball Diaries. Jim Carroll.
Jim Carroll. Yes.
The Jim Carroll band.
I love Jim Carroll.
Dude, he kept when I was watching it, I was like, is that he kept reminding me of what's his nuts from Danny Elfman. I was like, that's not Danny Elfman.
Oh yeah.
It looked like a mix between Danny Elfman and Starman.
Yeah,
that was the guy that was hanging out with Andy Warhol, I think, in real life. That guy, Jim Carroll.
Jim Carroll. If you ever saw Basketball Diaries, that was with Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark Wahlberg. That was his movie based off of his book of his diary.
Oh wow, I had no idea.
Total crazy 70s 60s New York shooting dope punk rock stuff. But yeah, Jim Carroll Band, People Who Died, check it out. One of the best punk songs ever.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and the songs that they do in this movie too is super catchy, super cool. Now again, I saw this movie around the same time I saw '84, so that's why to me they always go together. Huge James Spader guy. I think this movie as well is just really well paced. It's a great story. Gets kind of brutal towards the end as well. Now, Cody, did you watch this before or just for the show?
I watched this a couple years ago, but I have that. I think it was Kino when Kino released it. Is that
I
think
they did do Tough Turf? I think.
Yeah. So I watched that. I like the concept of his family came from money, but they lost the money. So he was kind of because at first when they show him there's roaches walking around his house and stuff.
Oh yeah.
So I like that aspect that he was this. He's new in town and he's not used to the better things in life, and he even takes some of them to that club, bro. Yeah, country club, man, dude. And there's just dancing and singing numbers throughout this whole thing where kind of I thought it was really cool, but I feel like somebody on the outside would be the tone is everywhere. But man, it starts getting it gets real when what's his dad gets shot. I'm like, what the hell? I was like, dang, that got weird. Or not, it got weird, it got real. but I liked it a lot. And then like the whole end credit scene where they're all like rocking out with the band. I was like, I really like this movie, but I can see where people would think that the tone is just totally off. So like someone like Dave, have you seen this one, Davey?
Yeah, I watched this one in preparation for the show. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I think-
How did you take it coming into it like that? Was it kind of off the style? Like,
I
the
mean, I
pacing
see
like
what
that?
you mean, but I always like check into like the history and stuff on
Yeah.
these, and it's like hearing about, you know, interference and stuff like that. I know that parts of the production were really rushed, and you know, the producer stepped in and made some stuff happen like towards the end. So I always like kind of attribute that, like maybe that's one of the reasons why the tone isn't exactly like consistent. You know, kind of gave me like a Romeo and Juliet kind of vibe as far as like just the basic idea of the story, you know, like a rivalry that, you know, can turn deadly, that's even though it's relatively new kind of thing, you know, at least for our main characters there. So yeah, I mean, I had a fun time with this one, but I see what you're saying as far as, you know, tonally, you know, little bit up and down on that.
Yeah, it was
So,
definitely.
I mean,
yeah, it was some cool fight scenes, and man, the opening scene where he's like on his bike, he just like kind of beats up all four of them and keeps on going. Like he doesn't even
Oh,
stop
I
his
love
bike.
it.
I don't. Yeah, it's like dang,
No,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, the guy whips him in the back with like the antenna from the car or whatever. Like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
How about you, Fozzie, man? I don't know. I think this is another one I would assume you'd be into, but
Yeah.
let's hear
Yeah.
it.
I had this on VHS back in the day, and strangely enough, I always remember this day. I went to Best Buy soon after I got a DVD player, maybe a year or two after. But I got this one, Valley Girl, and Last American Virgin were like the
Great.
3 pickup DVDs I got, and I always think of them together. But I always like this. It's like if James Spader was a guy who thought that he was like Parker Lewis Can't Lose, or thought that he was like Ferris Bueller, but he actually wasn't. He was just a more cocky former rich kid, and he can't accept the problems, but it works. It shows James Spader as like the guy who's going to be the guy in Pretty in Pink. You know, I like the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Good
nice
stuff.
to see him in a role like this, because when I think of James Spader, I always think that he's like the bad kid, where this he was kind of almost kind of like the good guy in a sense. Like he was the one that you rooted for, and he was kind of the lead, but in the way of like the hero almost, right? So it was different to see him in this role, and I thought he did really well. Like I love his character in this. But you know, keeping with the James Spader route, there's another movie that he did right around this time, which again could be an amazing double feature with this. And this is another one where there's school elements to it. It's not in a school, but these kids are now new to a school, and that's a movie called New Kids, which I think falls in the same vein as like all these movies we're talking about right now. Like I always like stack these together. Now, New Kids is about 2 kids whose parents die, and one of the parents was Tom Atkins. And he was one of the parents that died, and Lori Loughlin and her brother, you know, move in with, I believe it must be like their aunt and uncle or something. And their aunt and uncle own like this little like mom and pop carnival type of place.
Amusement park,
Amusement park, yeah. And they're new at the school, and, you know, they meet some friends, and, you know, then the main baddie is James Spader. He's like the main bad kid at this school, and he kind of has a thing for Lori Loughlin being the new girl, and she doesn't really want anything to do with them. So then it becomes more of a rivalry, a gang war between like him and his buddies, and then her and her brother, you know, them being the new kids at the school. So you kind of get that same, you know, vibe with it taking place in school between, you know, that group of bad kids and these new kids. So again, this is another one of those movies that it does take it pretty far. It gets pretty violent. There's a lot that goes on here. It does get pretty raw and dirty, but it's interesting because then you got James Spader, who's in a very similar movie like Tough Turf, but now the role is completely reversed, and he's like the main bad kid. So I always love this one too. This is another one that I really, really loved. And, you know, it just kind of, for me, it clumps in a lot with like 84 and Tough Turf and stuff. So, it seems like you've seen this one, Cody, for sure.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen this one too. I remember back, it was like on demand. They used to have a thing called fear.com or fearnet, So I remember, so I saw Lori Loughlin was in it. I was like, what is this? So I watched it, and then I saw it was directed by Sean Cunningham.
Sean Cunningham,
yeah. And I was like, oh, this is cool. And James Spader's in there, and I can't remember, but they're on bikes in that movie too, right? A lot.
The new kid from the school or on the beginning there.
Yeah, they're in the bike. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I remember watching it thinking it wasn't going to go as hard as it did. And it did. I was like, oh, wow. Okay. So, and I appreciated that. Like, I was used to Lori Loughlin. I think this was the first thing I saw Lori Loughlin in that wasn't, Aunt Becky. And then after that, I started seeing other things with her in there. So I really enjoyed the movie, and seeing James Spader as the bad guy, or that bad of a bad guy was pretty cool.
How about you, Davey? Did you get to check this one out at all?
I've not seen this one. I'm checking it out. I'm just looking over the cast right now and everything, and I'm like, based on what you guys are saying, this sounds like something I've got to check out. I mean, Sean Cunningham, Jake and Maggie Gyllenhaal's dad was one of the writers here, and good old Eric Stoltz popping up. And plus,
Stoltz,
yeah.
And I can't get enough of Tom Atkins. So even if he's in the movie just for a little bit, I'll take that stash as much as I can get. So I have to hop on this one. But yeah, I've yet to see this one.
And the carnival setting's really cool too.
Yeah, I think you really like this one. There's points of this where I feel like, in my opinion, I feel like it's a little bit less like energetic as like a Tough Turf is to me. Like I feel like even what you said with the music numbers and stuff, but in Tough Turf, I think everything it moves really quickly. I think this one, takes a little bit longer to get going, and you kind of learn about some different things. But all in all, I think it is a cool movie that not many people ever talk about. Now, Foz, have you seen this one?
Yeah, it's been a while. I remember it was where the others were like inner city. This was like southern,
sure,
right?
Correct,
like,
yeah.
Like it went more. See, I'm from West Virginia, Appalachian, so I can relate to all that more than the inner city. And it always struck me as weird whenever there's like the teenage gang in the small southern town. I'm like, dude, you'd have your ass whipped so hard by some coal miner or whatever it is equivalent there. There ain't no gang here. And it's like the James Spader character you would expect to be a dickhead, but evil. Like he was just pure evil, and nothing was going to stop him. And so it's just down and dirty. And I liked it. I've always liked it. But that's the one thing I remember. It was just and Southern movies, country movies, like from where I'm from, feel dirtier and grittier. And especially during that time, they just had a feel to them, and it adds to it.
Yeah, it is interesting too, because you're right. Like that's a great look. I didn't really think about it that way, that a lot of these movies are inner city movies. This one does take it, more to the South. So you're getting a different aspect. And what's funny about James Spader's character too, is he always dressed kind of nice in school, but like everybody around him was very dirty. And, there's scenes of them hanging out in the dirt and they're, messing with the pit bull and stuff. And he's still dressed to the nines. Right. And like, he's like supposed to be this high school kid and he's mixed in with this group. So it is kind of a cool concept. It's different. And he, I think that helps him stand out as like the leader because, he's like the drug dealer. Yeah. That's like making all the money and he's just got all these cronies working around him kind of thing. So,
he thinks he's better than everybody would turn on anybody in a moment.
Oh yeah, even his friends, and then like he's even almost got the cop wrapped around his finger. So the sheriff or whatever. So another one, New Kids is another one. If you guys haven't checked out, definitely check it out. I think it really works with the two that we've already discussed now. And keeping this thing kind of in the same vein. I'll just go backwards a little bit here, and we can talk about Class of 99. Now, Class of 99 was a movie that came out in 1990, and it's technically a sequel to Class of 84, but even though there's no real carryover as far as I can see, it's a similar concept. The same director of this movie, Mark Lester, did Class of 84. It's considered a sequel, but it's very, very different in tone. I mean, obviously, the way it looks is very different. It brings it into the year 1999, which I think they thought was going to be like this futuristic, crazy time, and it just never was. So it is interesting to kind of see what they thought 99 was going to look like back in 1990. And this one's kind of about teachers that get put in the school that are almost like like robots, I guess.
Android robots.
Androids, and they're there to like keep all the kids in line because the school's like running rampant or whatever like that. So
yeah,
definitely different.
They're ex-military robots.
Yeah,
there's like 4 of them that they put in.
Cool concept. I think it's a cool concept, different on this like kind of subgenre of going into schools. Now you've got these students fighting with android teachers, and you know, very futuristic like atmosphere in 1999. But I always like this one. I don't like it as much as I like 84, but I always thought this was a fun movie as well. And Cody, you said you recently just watched this one, right?
Yeah, I watched this a couple days ago and I really, really liked it. It's like, man, this is a movie I would have loved. And in my mind, I know it was made in 90 or 1990, but I kept thinking it was 99. I was like, how did I not watch this in 99? Like, how do I not remember this coming out? And I was like, oh yeah, it's not made in 99. It was came out in the 1990s. But I'm a big Pam Grier fan, so I thought that was awesome to see her doing this.
She's great.
And then you got Stacey Keach. She has like the weird eyes and the mullet.
The white hair.
Yeah,
the almost cool. Albino, even though his facial hair or the eyebrows and stuff don't match. And
yeah, and I loved how it was like, and it was kind of like a Mad Max mixed in. I'm a big fan of the Warriors, and this had like some like, you know how like they have like different gangs and whatnot. The violence is pretty cool. What was the little kid in it? Like he kept looking like Christian from Planet C.
The near dark.
It's the Christian kid, yeah.
He's
peppered in throughout 80s cinema.
Yeah, 100%.
It cracked me up, man. But I thought it was really cool.
That's Jason Patrick's brother.
Oh, is it? I did
brother,
not know that, but yeah, man, I just laughed every time I saw him. You know, much love to that actor and to Christian, but yeah, it kept making me.
Christian
laugh.
was great in that movie.
Christian's getting play, and he's not even here. It's amazing. What a guy!
It's always how it is. It's always how it is.
But what I really loved was like the end scene. It mirrored the first Terminator. I thought that was really cool. I love the effects and even like the way they shot like the feet and stuff like that. It was very Terminator-esque, and I like that a lot. That was really cool. And I don't think we're going to talk about it or not, but the sequel, Class of '99, The Substitute, I've not seen, but I just hear horror stories about it, how it's so terrible. But you know, Garrett will vouch for me. I am a huge Sasha Mitchell fan. The boss. Sasha Mitchell fan. So I was like, man, it sounds cool, but I don't know. I've yet to see that one, but I really like Class of '99.
You knew who was in it. I knew you'd want to see it.
Yeah,
it's worth it. It's worth it.
Is it okay? Everyone's like, oh, it's crap, it's trash. But it's like, I like trash and crap sometimes. So, and I like Sasha Banks. I said, God damn, Sasha Mitchell.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I recently bought this box set.
Nice.
And it is from overseas, and it's Class of '84, Class of '99, and Class of '99 2 in this box set, right? And I bought this specifically for Class of '99 2 because I had never seen it, and I was like, shit, this is cool. Like, I'll get this thing and finally check this out for the first time. And it's all Blu-ray, so that was cool. And I popped it in, and for some reason, this is the only one that's region B locked.
Really?
The other ones are region free. The first two. So it's
Garrett,
region B locked.
Do you have those old like 8-pack movies that it's like Legendary Deadpan went searching for everything? Because it's on there. Part 2 is on one of those.
No, is it?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I know part 1 is.
I'm pretty sure part 2 is too. I might be remembering that wrong, but I'm pretty sure.
I definitely don't have it because this is the only way I have this movie. But I do have a region-free player, but I've talked about this before. I unplugged it to plug in my son's video games now. So it's like, in order for me to get to it, I have to go pull the entertainment center back out, re-put everything in. So it's just kind of become a pain in the ass. So I haven't got a chance to even watch this yet because it was region.
It's on YouTube. I'll just tell everybody it's on YouTube.
It's on Tubi I saw it's on Tubi as well.
The sequel?
Yeah. It's also on Vudu. Yeah, it's also on Vudu for like under $10. All three of the movies are on Vudu.
Yeah, and I saw that came out in '94, and it was going to be called Class of 2001. Another thing I want to mention about Class of '99, the first one, or the one from the '90s, the girl in it. So when I was watching the movie, I was like, man, who is this girl? Because she looked very familiar. But it was the girl. I had a huge crush on this girl in the early '90s. She was in My Boyfriend's Back. She played Missy or Misty.
Right.
Yeah, so I was like, man, what happened? Yeah. So it was cool to see her in this.
Good throw to Boyfriend's Back. Good movie.
Yeah.
Obviously, it seems like Davey checked this one out because he was chatting about it. So, what'd you think about it, man?
Yeah, I really like that kind of, Terminator was sort of big, taking a little bit from that, with the militarized robot teachers. Malcolm McDowell, like getting to play against type. I like seeing people get to play against type, so that's pretty fun there. Pam Grier, of course. And yeah, the practical effects of it all. I mean, I think like that's one thing that really stands out to me, even like as silly as it sounds, even, it doesn't seem like we get much like real actual practical pyrotechnics in movies, but I know there's like parts where they're like riding the bikes like through the fire rings, like going up the stairs and stuff like that. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and this one was shot in Seattle, so it's really cool to like kind of see. There's something about Seattle and just the dreary Pacific Northwest that just plays into the whole post-apocalyptic kind of vibe that they're going for, because it never really looks nice. It's like always kind of dreary and dirty. So I dig that. There's a really cool like kind of club scene in here where they they have some of the musicians or were kind of inspired by like the scene at the time there in Seattle. So bringing some of those musicians in is pretty cool. And I was just looking over everything again, just kind of with all of these, just sort of refamiliarizing myself with like everyone that was in the movie and everything. And Joshua Miller, is that the same guy that's Jason Miller from The Exorcist, his son?
Yes.
He just did that exorcism movie with I guess they did it in 2019, but the movie with Russell Crowe that just came out. So that's an interesting like piece of trivia there, because I don't think he acted very much. So I mean, I think this one, even though like you said, Garrett, it's not really like a direct like tried and true kind of sequel. It is sort of fun when these movies sort of like fit together as just stories that can be told together, even if characters don't carry over.
Yeah. It is
definitely different from the first one.
Yeah, especially too because it's almost given you from two different like places in time, right? Like we're talking 84 to 99. That's like a big difference in like how things were at that point and what I think they thought things were going to be at that point. But definitely cool for sure. And I knew when we did this that this had to have been included in the list, and even we could even squeeze part 2 in there with this one. But I think out of all of us, I think Vaz was the only one that's seen part 2 because it's been it's been kind of lost for a long time.
So this is all very murky for me. I remember seeing Class of 1984 first. But I do remember at some point on TV seeing parts of Class of 1999 and not really knowing what it was. And then I watched 84 and I was like, wait, wasn't there another movie? So I went back and watched Class of 1999 properly. And I was like, okay, I get it. And a couple of things I just want to add before we move on was Davey was mentioning the music. It had like early 9 Inch Nails, like Perfect Circle, not Perfect Circle, Pretty Hate Machine, playing in it. And the one thing I really liked about this movie is in 1984 it was all about the teacher and the grown-ups and this generation's so terrible coming up, and now in this one you're feeling sympathy for the gang members, for the kids, that this is not a life they wanted, but you just had to do it, and now they're being eradicated instead of helped. So I like the different levels.
It's a little bit of a flip.
Yeah, they flipped the villain and and whatnot. And, and the gangs came together. The one thing I thought was funny is that, this guy gets in the beginning of the movie, he's getting out of jail, and the first thing he does is go straight to school. Like it's like, oh,
Yeah.
that's a good guy, and everyone, no matter how bad these gangs were, man, they were going to school, like
they had the education's important, man.
Yeah, I mean,
free lunch, man. Free lunch.
Yeah, they had to go.
Free pizza.
Yeah.
Free pizza.
It was free pizza.
Hey, if Pam Grier were my teacher, I'd be there too, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably what it is for sure.
One guy's like spanking him, remember? The one robot guy spanking the other guy.
Like real fast.
Only in Catholic school.
Man,
Oh my god.
good movie.
Well-
man. I dug that movie a lot.
Definitely. Agree. I like it. I think this one that we're going to talk about is funny because like it kind of takes it a little bit out of like we've been talking a lot about punks and stuff like that. This one came out in I think 86, I think. And to me, or 87, but this always felt like it was an early 90s movie. And I think Cody recently watched this, but it's The Principal, which is, it takes it out of this punk element and brings it more in, like you said, like an inner city with like just you don't have the punk gang anymore. Like I'm trying to think of this one because I'm getting this in Substitute mixed up because I just watched both of them recently.
Yeah.
But this is Belushi, right? Is this
Yes, Belushi, yeah.
okay? And he
Yeah,
comes in as a principal, and he was like a teacher that was like he was kind of like a screw up teacher.
yeah.
So they said, all right, you're going to be a principal, and they put him in like the worst school like in town, and he went in is trying to restore order, but like it's just full of like derelicts and crime and all this stuff and gangs, and nobody's listening to him. The teachers have basically given up at this point, and he wants to start to make a change, so he has to kind of use his like rough edginess to him to try to get everything in order. I think this was a really, really good movie overall as a whole. And like I said, I always thought this was like an early 90s movie. It was actually a late 80s movie along these same lines of everything we're talking about today. Not any really horror elements like some of the other ones that we talked about today, probably pretty straightforward. But I thought this was really, really good. And Cody, you just said you watched this, which I'm surprised you hadn't seen it because I know you do like these kind of movies. What did you think of it going into it now?
No, yeah, so I liked it a lot. I was like, this is really cool. I remember, you were telling me it's really good, so I looked it up. I was like, Jim Belushi. I was all right, and then I watched it. And I was like, dang, this is really cool. And it kept cracking me up. He was like drinking like Ovaltine. And he was
Tang.
like, was it Tang? It was something chocolate, but he was pouring.
No, yeah, Ovaltine with
okay. I was.
It was Coke. It was like Coke. You like pour Coke in it.
Oh, when he was making the drinks in his house and stuff like that.
I was like, it was fun. I was like, man, I was like, I'm not mad at. Like, I kind of want to try that. Like Coke and Coke. But then later on, he's putting the beer in it and stuff. But yeah, I thought it was really cool. I liked how he was hiring the bigger teachers to be
security,
security, dude. And they're all like walking down the halls, getting stuff done. Yeah, the big teachers.
Get all the big teachers.
Yeah, I thought it was super cool. Something I was like, something I really enjoy in life is discovering older movies that are just hidden gems to me. So when I find an 80s or 90s movie that I've never seen before, and I'm like, oh my god, I would like this would have been a favorite of mine back in the day. Like I love that, and this is one of those. So I had a great time watching it.
100%. David, did you get to check this one?
Yeah, I mean, I saw this one a really long time ago, so it's been a while for me. So just refreshing my memory on everything. I love that kind of sub-genre of film where somebody gets in trouble with the law, and then it's like in Mighty Ducks, he has to go teach
that's exactly it.
The team of just all the misfits and everything like that, and then. Yeah, it is really interesting to see somebody like Jim Belushi because obviously he had, comedy in his background and like within his family, but I think he was one of those guys that kind of danced around for a little bit as far as like acting roles, as like, what kind of character am I going to play? And this is probably, I think, the first one on our list of like that, hard-nosed person comes into a school and like really needs to like kind of set things straight kind of vibe. And I mean, I'm not the biggest Jim Belushi. Well, gosh, some of his
according
movies,
to Jim,
not the biggest according to Jim guy, but what's the one that he's in with Charles Grodin in the late 80s? Taking Care of Business. That movie is awesome. Like I love that one, Mr. Destiny, all that kind
Mr.
of
Destiny's
stuff.
great.
It is really cool.
He was in those dog movies I liked.
Oh yeah, K9.
K9, yeah, K9.
Yeah, so it's cool to see him in something that's a little bit against type. I always like seeing people just being able to kind of like stretch their chops a little bit. I mean, you got Louis Gossett Jr. in here. Rest in peace. He recently just passed. Yeah, I mean, can't go wrong with a little Ray Don Chong, right? An 80s staple for sure. So yeah, I think this one is a great one to kind of kick off the genre of like the, you know, tough guy needing to be a bit more resourceful than in movies like Lean on Me or Stand and Deliver.
In this movie, it's rated R, but it honestly, it was more for language than anything. It wasn't as hard as like the earlier 80s stuff, which is fine. But I was kind of taken, I was like, oh wow, there's violence, but not as big of violence as like, you know, Class of 84 and whatnot. It was more like, you know, every word out of Jim Belushi's mouth was you know, the F word.
Yeah, I think they have like a quota. I don't know if it changes throughout time, but I've like heard throughout my life that it's like, well, if you say this many F words, that's when we can't let you be PG-13 anymore. It's just this arbitrary, you know.
Yeah, I wonder how a movie like this did like when it first came out. Was this? I mean, I would think it had a theater run.
Oh, I'm sure it did.
But I'm just curious, like where it kind of fell, because you know when we start talking about the next ones and stuff like that, all these movies kind of started to feel similar to me as a kid because I'm like, oh, it's another teacher movie, and I didn't really notice these movies until like A Dangerous Minds and stuff like that because that opened my eyes to a lot of these kind of movies which have straight names like. You know, Class of 84 sounds the same, but like Tough Turf, whatever. But like when you call a movie a principal, I mean, there's only so many things that this movie could do. Now, right? So, I always found this one good. I think this is when I watched it again, I forgot how much I liked it because it wasn't one that I watch on a regular basis. I've had it on DVD for a long time, but to rewatch it for the show, I was like, man, this is such a good one.
Yeah, I've always sung this movie's praises. This is a real TNT at night, TBS at night, WGN during the middle of a Saturday. It is that type of movie. You could see this with like Whitewater Summer or something, you know, like those types of 80s feeling movies. The thing about this movie for me always was, it was a lot like we were talking on the last episode of Movie Punks. We were talking about Repo Man, how Emilio Estevez was not a cool guy. He was not a nice guy. He was just your lead, but he was not a nice guy. Jim Belushi in this is not a nice guy. He is not a good educator. He's a screw up. He's a mess up. And some of the stuff that he does with these students, that take it out of context of what this movie is nowadays would never fly. But it was Jim Belushi, and most people just laugh at the name of Jim Belushi, like, oh my God, Jim Belushi. But he really did good in this. Like, there are some movies in the 80s he actually tried, and this was one of them. I think he thought he was going to be a big star, and this was like one of his big star moments, and he really went for it.
Yeah, and you know what else I think too is I thought that the main bad kid, what was it? I think his real name in the movie was Victor, but I know him from other stuff.
Yeah, he's
great. What do I know him from? Is he was because like to me, I'm looking at him and I'm like, I know this guy from a lot of stuff. Was he in horror movies? Like, he was awesome.
Was it the Five Heartbeats that he was in? That kind of like Temptations movie.
See, I've never seen that, so I don't know, but I feel like I know him from something. Let me see if I can look him up. Oh, his name was Michael Wright.
So he was in the V TV show and the Final Battle like mini series that they did. So he was in, if you're familiar.
He has
that. I do like those. Yeah,
he has that rough voice that's always very distinguishable.
Yeah, like I look at him and I'm like, he could have been like Candyman if they couldn't get the other.
Yeah,
totally.
Dude, this was a movie where I like throughout the whole movie I was like, this guy's gonna get shot. Like, you know, like this is the only time I've really felt like the teacher is not gonna. You know, like I was like, man, I'm scared for
this
the
guy's gonna win in the end.
Yeah. I was like, man, Jim Belushi needs to calm down. You know, like
if I was Jim Belushi, I'd just be like, yeah, it's your school, fine, take my bike and leave it.
No, 100%.
Yeah, because you know, like they had the whole like assembly scene. It's like, man, there could have been like a bigger riot. Like things could have got out of control real quick in that movie. You know.
Mhm. Yeah, no, I think this is one that if it slipped on anybody's radar, I would highly recommend checking this one out.
Never heard of it. Never heard of it until you told me about, or until we were talking about a list for this movie, and I was like, what? And then last night you told me, like, no, you really need to watch it. So I did.
As soon as Garrett said it, I got so excited. I was like, oh, yeah.
Well, the next one is kind of one that is, to me, I think of The Principal. I hear another movie called The Substitute, and I, you know, can only think it's going to mean a couple things, right? So, that's the next one, and this one was a '90s flick. So, you know, this one brought into like the I think mid '90s, maybe this one, and it spawned like 3 sequels or whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot.
I have a question. Was this after Dangerous Minds? Did this knock off Dangerous Minds?
What was Dangerous Minds? It had to have been before '96, right?
I think it was like 95.
Yeah, it must have been a knockoff.
Well,
yeah, Dangerous
really
Minds was
94, 95.
It was, yeah, it must have been like 94, right around there.
Or maybe they were just in production at the same time. It was one of those things.
But I thought this was cool as well. I think it was interesting. You know, when you look at The Principal, it's pretty straightforward. You know, he joins a new school. It's a rough school. He fights with the kids, and this one is interesting too because it's like there's a school that all this gang wars going on. This woman, she gets attacked by, I guess, the main gang member, and then her boyfriend who's like he's like a
mercenary
or something.
Yeah.
He decides he's going to go, you know, pretend he's the substitute and try to clean the school up, I guess. And you know, it's the same concept. He starts fighting with the kids, but he's fighting back because obviously this guy knows how to fight, and you know, he's not going to let these kids get away with it anymore. But what I thought was cool about this one, like, I went back and watched this again for the show. I remembered it, but like I hadn't watched it in a long time. But I forgot how the story kind of wraps around into like a bigger deal with like Ernie Hudson in it. Like I forgot that it was like that there was that much substance. Like as I was watching, I was like, okay, it's going to be pretty much the same as The Principal. But you don't realize that like there's so much more to this, right?
Yeah, dude. The whole like cocaine scene when they're fighting. Yeah, it's like that's a lot of cocaine at the school, man. Yes, and I know you were excited to talk about this one, Cody, right? Yeah, this is a movie I watched all the time when I was a kid, and for some reason, it has isn't Mark Anthony in this too? The singer, yeah, he was like
one of the main gang guys.
Yeah, but like one of my favorite actors is Ernie Hudson, so I love him in this movie. And I do like the guy who played the substitute. I can't think of his name.
Tom Berenger.
Tom Berenger. Like, I would have loved to. For some reason, when I think about the substitute, I think about this movie, but I think about Treat Williams in that role for some reason. Even though because he's in the next 3.
He's in the other 3.
Yeah, the other 3. But yeah, this movie is super fun. I remember having I had a pack of all of them from Walmart. And I watched them all
have
the time.
that.
Yeah,
I have still. But
somebody
Viavision's coming out with the Blu-ray pack of all.
Super excited! They're all coming out on Blu-ray. So this is definitely one of my favorite teacher movies. Like this is probably my favorite teacher movie.
How about you, Davey? You know this one?
Yeah, this was one that my friends and I would like rent in, you know, it came out, it must have been, if it's 96, it was early high school for me. I remember renting this one a few times with my buddies. Just, you know, loved the, you know, exploitation kind of approach of, you know, it's sort of like, you know, that kind of vibe meets the Dangerous Minds thing. So, you know, I dig these sorts of, you know, where they just kind of ratchet up the drama a little bit more, you know, sort of like, you know, a little bit of what like Gleaming the Cube did. Garrett, I see your shirt there. And then even like something like Steel Justice. I don't know if you guys have ever seen that, where somebody, it has to, you know, in Steel Justice, the main character, it's the guy from Cobra Kai, like the guy from Karate Kid that's like the main bad guy. It's like he comes back from Vietnam, he can't let it go. And then we've got this mercenary, you know, and as soon as something happens to somebody that he cares about,
Steel Justice with Martin Cove. Oh yeah. I have Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, that is like an awesome, like, you know, cheesy classic, you know. And this one kind of, you know, definitely a little more serious with like I felt like in the early to mid 90s they were trying to get a little more serious with these. Yeah, really love Tom Berenger. He's got such a, you know, his presence, and just like he's got the face for it, you know, playing that kind of serious, like you buy him as like this guy is a, you know, grizzled guy. He's been through some shit. So, you know, love him in this, you know, love him from Major League and all that kind of fun stuff. I had forgotten that Mark Anthony was in it, and maybe just because he wasn't like very big here in the States back in 96. I don't think he got more popular until the late 90s.
No, it was like 99.
Yeah, like when he married J-Lo.
But he must have been a big star already, right? If he's acting here. And then I had forgotten like Luis Guzman and William Forsythe, who I just love William Forsythe, great character actor. And Cody, like you said, with Ernie Hudson. I mean, I'll bring it up again. I like seeing him play a different kind of character. Yeah. Like, it's really cool. He always, I mean, he's charming in a way, but he's a really bad dude here, you know? So really fun to see that element there as well.
Yeah. What scene really stands out to me when I watch this again? I was like, this is so crazy. Is the scene in the library. We just starts whipping everybody out the window.
I was going to talk about that.
I was like,
that woman just locked herself away.
Yeah, I was like, he whips the guy out, but then every time he grabs the guy, he just brings him right over the window and throws him out a couple stories or whatever. Like,
just killing people.
Yeah. And then Ernie Hudson's on the phone. He's like, police, we had an accident, because he saw someone fall down into the window, and then all of a sudden like, he sees someone else. He's like, oh, never mind, because he's realized it's the kids. Yeah. That was cool. Now, Foz, are you a big fan of this one like you are Principal?
Yeah, man. Well, not as much as the Principal. You can't be as big of a fan as this as you can the Principal. But yeah, man, this was a staple. You'd rent it. It'd come on TV USA. Again, you know. Yeah. This was a staple, and I've seen all the sequels as well. Tom Berenger, except for like the Major League, I was trying to think of other sequels he did, because one of my favorite movies is Eddie and the Cruisers, and then he didn't come back for Eddie and the Cruisers 2, Eddie Lives, and then he didn't come back for these. It's like, come on, Tom.
Did he come back for Major League 2 or no? He did.
Yeah, I think he's in the second one, right?
Okay.
Well, and I think he's in like
Scott Bakula.
He's in like 9 of the Sniper movies. Like, he's in like a lot of those.
He just took that and ran with that.
Yeah. He's like, I'm done with the substitute. I'm going to be in the Sniper movies. And he's in like literally 9 of those movies.
One thing I was going to say about Mark Anthony, around this same time, he was in Hackers as like one of the FBI guys, and I always remember him from that. And wasn't his father a famous singer or something like that?
I think so.
I might have saw him behind the music.
Yeah. It sounds familiar.
But he would pop up randomly. I always remember him on Hackers. But yeah, Substitutes, great, man. I'd watch all of them again, honestly, even the sequels. I always like at the end, whenever the different guys show up from like his unit to help out and everything. I always thought that was a cool scene.
Oh yeah. We had them like all of his boys from like the mercenary group, whatever. Yeah, that was cool.
And they're all character actors. You're like, oh, that guy.
It was the Expendables back in the 90s, man. They're all just meeting up in this school.
For real. No, it was cool. Now I don't remember a lot of the sequels. It's been a long time since I've seen them. Now, does anybody have anything they want to touch upon those? Like if any of them stand out or anything like that to you?
I don't remember them, but I remember liking them a lot. The first one's the best one, and then the rest of them are all just one movie to me.
It's like the kickboxer movies as they go. Like I like the early kickboxer movies. I like Cody in a couple of the kickboxer movies, but after a while, I'm like, wait, there's a kickboxer 5, 6. Yeah. I lost count after a while. That's what that seems like to me.
This is hot take. My favorite kickboxer movies are the ones with Sasha Banks.
Sasha Mitchell.
What is Mitchell? God.
Isn't there one where he gets real upset because is either the little boy died or his girl died or something like that?
Yeah.
And like the first time you see him, he's just like lovable Cody type guy. And then the next movie, he's like, I hate everything. I'm gonna kill everybody. And that was that movie.
Yeah. Well, I think that's why I like those movies so much, is because you saw Cody being somebody different. And I watched it like during the summer. It would be on after Wings. I'd watch Wings in the morning, 10 a.m. to 10:30, or 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then after that, it would be either La Familia or it would be one of those old kickboxer movies.
That's funny. That is
With
so
you
funny.
guys
with
in your
Sasha
game.
Mitchell. Sasha Mitchell.
Sasha Mitchell.
But you always
I-
gotta watch the Wings first. That's a must.
Yeah.
Wings is great. Wings is great. I think I only remember the first Substitute sequel, but Treat Williams is just very charming. I know that he never quite rose to like A-list actor status, but I think in a movie like this, like, slides into that role, has a similar enough look to Tom Berenger. And yeah, just very charming in the role for sure.
Davey, it was right there. It was right there, man. Treat is a treat.
He is a treat. He is a treat. Yeah. Very fun. I think, didn't he play? He was one of the stormtroopers, one of the snow troopers, I think, in Empire Strikes Back. It's like a little tidbit on Treat Williams.
I don't know that.
You're talking to a Trekkie here, man. I don't know.
I got all the random facts. I got all the random, like you were talking about. What else has Tom Berenger been in? He was in this movie called Shattered. That's this total mind F of a movie. Really cool early night. Like if you like early 90s thrillers and you've never seen Shattered, gotta check it out.
It wasn't released by Vinegar Syndrome, was it? Because a part of me feels like I remember somebody releasing a movie called Shattered.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was, because it's a Wolfgang Peterson film. It's got Berenger, Bob Hoskins, Corbin Burnson is in it. So he and Berenger get to reunite there, and Alan Silvestri did the music. So I wouldn't be surprised if it's been, gotten picked up. It is a really good, trippy, kind of Hitchcockian sort of movie.
He was in an awesome movie in the 80s with Kirstie Alley and Sidney Poitier. It was like, I forgot what it was called, but it was so good. It was like the heat of the night, not heat of the night, but they were like out in the wilderness and he was trying to chase like a serial killer. It was really good. It was Sidney Poitier. He took like 10 years off and he was coming back and he was in this action movie. It was really good.
Oh, wow.
I think it was Kirstie Alley's first movie that she was in. It's from like 90, or it's from like 87 or 88, but it was really good.
No, that's cool, man. I'm glad. I'm gonna have to watch those Substitute ones, because I do remember when I got this pack, I watched them all, and I do think I enjoyed them all. But it's been a long time since I've checked out the sequels. And that was, bringing us to 96. So as you can see, we're going to talk about things. We can talk about things like Dangerous Minds. I mean, that really set off, doing some of these inner city teacher meets, bad students, tries to fix a bad school type thing. And, obviously that would be an easy answer, saying Dangerous Minds for this list. But after watching it again for this list, I realized like it was a more feel good story, I think, at the end, than a lot of the ones that we're talking about now that have like these really violent elements to it, where, it wasn't really like that in Dangerous Minds. There was never a point in time where you really felt like, Michelle Pfeiffer was like in real, like crazy danger, right? Like there wasn't points
more of like
where,
a lean on me.
Yeah, like they weren't trying to kill her or anything like that. She actually was, somebody really good for them. But it did spawn off almost kind of a resurgence of this genre that was a little bit popular in the 80s, like the ones that we talked about. So, going to things like The Substitute. And this other one I want to bring up now is one that when I started throwing names of movies out there for this show, Cody had mentioned a movie and I said, I've never seen that before. So I looked it up and I ended up checking it out. I don't know if you guys checked it out. And it's called 187. And it came out in 1997 with Samuel L. Jackson, where he plays a teacher. Now, what's so funny about it is I watched it on Tubi. That's what, like, all these movies I think are on Tubi at this point.
Yeah, it's like Teacher Month.
But then, like,
Tubi.
a couple days later, I went to the thrift store and I was like, I go there once a week and I'm looking around and I messaged Cody and I said, so random. Like,
Nice.
they had
That used to be
and I'm like,
everywhere.
I've never heard of this movie until he brought it up to me, which I'm like, how random? Like, is this something I must have just walked by like 1,000 times and didn't really catch my attention to now? Or is it just completely random that I found it there? So I was able to kind of add that to my collection, but I thought this was a great movie.
Yeah, I love really 187.
Completely a type of movie that we should be talking about tonight. So again, you could definitely tell this was a spin-off or some kind of, post Dangerous Minds type movie. I'm sure if there was no Dangerous Minds, 187 wouldn't have existed. But I liked it a lot. I thought it was, the same vein as like The Principal and stuff like that. I just feel like it was very similar in tone. Have you
Yeah.
guys seen this one?
Oh yeah, I remember it being everywhere when it came
Yeah,
out.
so do I.
It was a
It's
very
so
hot ticket
funny.
at the time.
Well, you know what's funny is that I thought it was like this big movie that everybody knew, but like lately I've been talking to people. Oh, 187. They're like, I don't know what that is. I was like, man, so I remember watching. I remember I was visiting my great grandma in Michigan, and we were watching TV, and 187. The trailer came on. They're like, starting this Friday. I was like, I want to see that. And my great grandma, who was like, obviously she was probably like 90 back in the 90s, and she was just like, no, you watch Seventh Heaven. And I was like, I don't know. I remember having this argument with her. I didn't want to watch Seventh Heaven. Well, yeah,
It's not even in the theater.
I know. Yeah. Well, anyways, long story short, I ended up watching Seventh Heaven. I actually really like the show, but anyways,
187th Heaven.
yeah. so anyways,
You're making a compromise.
So anyways, I go back home and I live with my grandma. I was raised by my grandma, and I remember telling her, I was like, I want to go see 187, and she like would not take me to see it in theaters, but I remember when it came out on VHS, she rented it for me, and I remember I was so excited for 187 for like a year, because that's when they'd come out in theaters, it'd play for 6 months, disappear, and then come out on VHS at the end of the year. So I was just like, man, I was super excited for 187. I always remember the argument I had with my my grandma, my great grandma, about, she's like, no, you watch Seventh Heaven, good programs like that.
Well, you know what, dude? Like, I'm learning a lot tonight. So, with this, it's like, screw like Barbenheimer. We need 187th Heaven, dude. That's like that's a double feature that we all want right there.
187th Heaven.
Wild. Like, he's a pastor that's had he's been pushed too far.
And I think
with the Bible.
Yeah, and I think 187 is what started the whole Russian roulette thing. Like, I feel like that became more popularized in this movie. I could be wrong, but that was the first time I saw it.
I know it from Deer Hunter.
Deer Hunter. Yeah.
That's just one of those classics you always hear about, but you have to be like ready to see that. That ain't a kid movie. Now 187, that's a total kid movie.
Yeah. There's kids in it, yeah.
Dude, the one scene that stuck out to me as a kid is when he like, is it Rosie Perez? I can't remember who it is, but like he like invites her in, and she just starts getting naked, and it's like, he's like, he's like, whoa, what are you doing? He's like, she was like, I thought, like that was just normal for her. I was like, dang, that's crazy, man.
Yeah. 100%.
I always remember at the end when they shave their heads when they're finally going for it full tilt, and I always associate that with like, oh man, this is the final thing we got to shave our heads.
That guy is in everything. The main the main gang guy, like Curtis. I don't know. He's in a lot of things. He's like in. He does a lot of comedy roles too. Yeah. He's a good actor. I like him. Curtis Collins,
Clifton Collins.
Yeah,
Clifton Collins.
Yeah. The Stoned Age is one of my favorites with him. And he's the
Boondock Saints
number 2. Yeah, and he's the number 2 in the Star Trek 2009. I always liked him in that. He's the Romulan guy. But he's in all kinds of stuff. Rules of Attraction. He was like the drug dealer in Rules of Attraction.
And he's still in everything. He randomly pops up, and when I see him, I think of 187.
Now, I watched a lot of these movies like leading up to the show, so I could be mistaking this for something else. Which is the one that he was with the girl and the dog was like hanging over the wall or whatever? Was that this?
I think
it's like, or is that the prince? I forget. Where like,
the dog, they killed the dog or whatever.
Yeah, and they had that chain hanging over the wall, and the dog was like hung or whatever. That's
it's 187.
That was a crazy one. Yeah.
And Samuel L. Jackson was great in this movie.
100%. Yeah,
it's one of his best.
Really well.
Yeah. And I remember going to Circuit City and buying 187 and
Seventh Heaven.
No. I did Dangerous Minds together.
Was 187 a snapper case? I'm trying to remember. I know I have
the one I have is a snapper case
me
but
too. I have that.
But I think now it comes, now the DVD just comes on normal DVD, but it was a snapper case. Yeah.
I'm sure I still got my snapper somewhere.
Yeah.
That's so funny, man. I don't know how this kind of passed me by all this time.
Garrett was in this 187-less world.
I guess so.
And this was 97, so I was 9.
Well,
so I was.
This is another thing too. I learned tonight that me and Davey are probably pretty close in age, where I feel like I always feel older than everybody.
I'm an
when he
82 baby. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, we're like the same age. So when you said
83.
that, when you said 97 or 96 was early high school, I was like, okay, we're on
Yeah.
the same age. So
I remember this one. This one was a big one, just because the subgenre was kind of popping off. You know, Samuel L. Jackson was, I mean, even though he had been in stuff like prior to Pulp Fiction, it was like that kind of kicked him off. Well, let's give some respect to National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1,
Loaded
which is
Weapon,
Yeah.
just as responsible for his rise to
Which,
stardom.
I've never seen, and I just bought it due
it's
to
so
Cody's.
Wasn't
thing.
that the
So
I
same
hope
year
you
as
enjoy it.
Pulp Fiction?
Yeah.
I've seen the cover of it.
Hartman.
And,
It's
I've
so
never
good.
seen it though.
So
It's
good.
What the hell was I doing in '97 then? I think '97 would have been the beginning of the Attitude Era, so that I was watching wrestling.
You were kissing girls.
And
Yeah, there you
97,
go.
You were going on movie dates,
Yeah.
but not
in
97.
97 might have been pushing it because I wasn't really that cool at that point. So I'm trying to think when that would have been. And 97 was kind of on. I was still a little bit young.
99 was
doing.
cool, Garrett.
I was probably
Pricing out Jinko jeans. I don't know what was going on.
97 was definitely Attitude Era. Would I have been listening to 9 Inch Nails in 97? Probably, right?
Oh,
Yeah.
probably.
Oh, no,
You
I
probably
was
had a
actually-
Downward Spiral shirt.
Marilyn
Oh,
Manson.
I 100%
100%
had a Downward Spiral shirt at some point. I think I was introduced to Hatebreed in 97.
That was
So I think that-
early.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was like
that is
I got
very
into them
Hatebreed.
right when what was the album? The shit, not the first Under the Knife, but the bigger album, the blue one.
Right. On,
I think it was like-
on Victory. I can't remember.
Yeah,
the name
that was
of
the
it.
first. I think I got that on release date, and that's when I first heard them or something like that. But it might have been like 97, 98.
So they were in your area. That was like your
Yeah,
area,
yeah.
big band. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's just crazy that some of these movies had passed me by around that time. When was Fear? I remember seeing that in the theater.
Feels like 95,
Well-
96.
Yeah, it was a little earlier.
Mhm.
So okay, so I did see that. Interesting. Well, as we kind of round out this list of like these main 10 that we're going to kind of discuss, this was late 90s. Like this was I think these were both 98, and it took the idea of like these high school type of movies, and they added a lot of horror elements to them. And you know, the first one we can talk about is The Faculty, which I see Cody's wearing the shirt right there.
Beautiful.
And it was like, you know, it's post Scream, so you got like that all-star young, good-looking cast of friends, and it takes place in a school. But this time, it's, you know, there's something wrong with the teachers. They're not sure. There's something not right here, and they kind of add a little sci-fi element to this, where you know you start adding this war inside the school, and now there's aliens involved in this. So it takes this genre and it kind of turns it and makes it a little bit more horror sci-fi-esque. And I think it was probably, you know, you could look at it two ways. It was taking the Dangerous Mind aspect of it and the post-Scream craze and kind of trying to make their own thing going on. And, you know, I think Faculty is a fantastic movie. I love it still to this day. I knew it was kind of one we weren't sure if we wanted to add to the list, but to change it up a little bit, I think there are elements, you know, that we can discuss. And I know universally it's pretty loved, and I don't know if it always was. You guys feel that this movie was always loved, or it's kind of gained love over the years?
I've always loved it. I've always had it on VHS. Like as soon as it came out, I remember my grandma bought it for me on VHS. So I had it since it came out on VHS.
I was a freshman when this came out. I just remember everybody going to the theater and seeing it. It was the big have to go see movie.
Yeah, I saw this one in the theater. My big brother took me to it. I remember because I think it came out in like December or something of that year. It was like late in the year. I remember
Sounds
it.
about right.
And yeah, man, this one is, I think maybe one of the reasons why it's kind of having a resurgence, it's because it's guys like, you know, like mine and your age and fought like just some of the older folks that are older, some of the folks that were in high school when it came out that maybe just haven't talked about it in a while. And now it's sort of like, hey, it's time to talk about The Faculty again and just sort of give this movie its flowers, because we always focus on the things that turn into franchises, right? So it's like, we talk about Halloween all day and Friday the 13th, will it happen or won't it? And then you forget about things like, you know, even the original Urban Legend or something like The Faculty. You know,
also there's the Robert Rodriguez that like this is one of his better movies in my opinion, and he's still a known director, even though his movies right now aren't the best. He's still talked about, and this gets talked about with From Dusk Till Dawn and stuff.
Yeah, he got this job by doing the stuff in Scream 2. He was the one who did the
stab.
The stab. Yeah, he shot the stab stuff, and he got the job because of it. Like Wes Craven's like, hey, you need to hire this guy to do this movie called The Faculty. And I love The Faculty because it's like, if they were going to make an updated version of like Body Snatchers, I feel like this was the perfect way to do it. And we're like now
Body Snatchers.
Yeah, like now it would just like I just know that they'd make it wrong.
Now, do you feel like
that?
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say they mixed in that whodunit element that you get from like Scream. It's not even just the sexy actors, but they keep you guessing like, you know, who's the alien here. So there's even, it's really similar to the scene in The Thing where they're like testing the blood, where everyone has to like shoot the drugs, basically. So yeah, and of course you got to give it up to Josh Hartnett's awesome hair. Good job, sir.
The cast.
Do you think that this got lost in the shuffle because of all the post Scream stuff that like maybe it doesn't get talked about as much through the years? Like again, I don't realize like I always thought it was great, but when I watched it again not too long ago, I was like, yeah, this is really good. And I just really am surprised it's not more highly regarded, like of people actively talking about it like they would a Scream or even I Know What You Did Last Summer. But and also too, I look at it and I like, you know, what would have happened if they would have tried to make this a more of a franchise? Because, you know, they had the Scream really work. Then all of a sudden they're like, hey, let's do Cursed, which is going to be like Scream, but like werewolf. And now all of a sudden it's like, now let's do Faculty, which is like Scream, but like Alien, right? So like you wonder if this would have benefited from having sequels to it and keeping the same type of.
Yeah, I think that's why people don't talk about it on a regular, because it's not a franchise. It's just a one-off. And when you have a one-off, sometimes they kind of get lost until a new release of it comes out on like a 4K or something. So like once this movie comes out on 4K, it's going to get popular again. You're going to see all these videos about it. People are going to be talking about it. But I think it's because, and honestly, man, if it didn't get a sequel, I kind of feel like maybe it didn't do as well in theaters.
That's what I'm thinking, is that it was well universally, it seemed like it was loved by the people who went, but maybe at that point people were kind of getting burned out on this same thing. And they were just like, oh, here we go, another, you know, slasher movie with these kids in high school, and not really knowing that this is actually very different than that. It seems on paper, and when you look at the movie art, poster art, on paper, it looks the same. You've got all the kids lined up, all the floating heads or whatever. Looks exactly like a Scream poster. So I think maybe people just kind of, you know, overlooked it.
And I do know around this time, you know, they had the whole Columbine, tragedy.
A little after.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah. So I know like movies like and movies like the one that with Sarah Gilbert I was telling you about with Usher. Like those, I think those were made, but then they're like,
Light It Up.
Light It Up, yeah. So like
those
were just like kind of they were in production, and then they're like, how do we sell this movie? So they just kind of had a quiet release in theaters. So I think that's kind of maybe this held it back, but I think it was like a video store darling where people rented the crap out of this movie.
I was going to say I feel weird on this because you all are talking about how it's not talked about. I don't know, maybe just around me and my friends, we've always talked about it. When I worked at a movie gallery, we rented it a lot, and it was always in rotation on TV, like on those AMC. Who does the big Halloween marathons? Is the AMC?
Yeah, AMC.
AMC does.
Yeah, it's always in the mix on that. So to me, Faculty was like a Scream, like not as big a Scream, but like in that mix of like 90s horror, I always think of The Faculty. And plus, good soundtrack. Remember Class of 2000 with like the all-star band with like Link Staley and everybody?
Yeah, I think this one, it's probably just a little bit of that fatigue. You know, it's like you're a few years into the whole Scream thing. But yeah, I think like what Foz was saying, you know, for me and my friends, maybe it was that first couple years after it came out where we revisited it multiple times. But, you know, I see folks like Barry over at Wolfman's Got Nards has been talking about like this one and Urban Legend for a while. So maybe it's just kind of about to pop back in. But yeah, I mean, I think this one's really fun.
I feel like it's getting more popular.
Yeah, and I think once it gets a new release, because I have a bare bones Blu-ray, and I think once it gets some treatment, I think it's gonna really, start up again with like people really realizing how good this movie really is, and maybe it did just get kind of lost in the shuffle back in the time for, the majority of people, like maybe not kids in high school, but maybe more adults at the point in time were just kind of like, all right, let's move on from all this.
Yeah,
then it just falls out of the consciousness. Like,
right.
People stopped. Like, I think that this movie is better than the first Final Destination film, but that spawned an entire franchise, so more people know about that. But I would put this one against that one. I think it would win every single time. And maybe that's just that I'm more of a fan of the style of movie that The Faculty is, like a little bit more of that whodunit kind of element. But yeah, it's crazy. There's some of those movies where you're just like, why didn't this ever get a sequel? Why didn't My Bloody Valentine ever get a sequel? And then, you ask that with a movie like The Faculty. So I'm sure it's day, like you guys are saying, once they put out a fabulous release, and people are going to be like, how the hell did I miss this? Especially younger people.
It's going to get a lot of fresh eyes. And it's popular too, because Garrett, you have that print that came out, right? From Matt Tobin?
I didn't. I was offered it, but I didn't take it. I just don't have a lot of space. I had to not do it.
Okay.
So
It's so cool.
taking it.
Yeah. Okay. Because it was sold out.
Video for it.
Yeah, it was sold out before I got to it.
But I think that's another movie that's probably going to get more love.
I mean, the cast is pretty incredible when you look back, and you're just
yeah.
Jon Stewart before he was a household name with The Daily Show, and of course
Salma
Elijah
Hayek.
Wood, and Salma Hayek's in there. There's Robert Patrick, the T-1000 is in there.
He's terrifying in that movie.
Yeah, I mean, he's just standing in the sprinklers.
He's such a great football coach.
Is Usher in this one?
He is in this. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay, yeah.
He's one of the football players. He kind of gets like dropped off. Like,
dude,
almost.
There was a character that was supposed to be like his girlfriend that they ended up kind of cutting out of the film, and so I think he ended up losing some of his scenes. But there's definitely some stuff that got left on the cutting room floor there.
Yeah, dude, they're throwing him everything.
He was in all of the promotional stuff. I think was he in the Gap ads? You all remember seeing the Gap ads with all the crew? I think Usher was in those.
My Way was like what. It was a cassette tape I had when I was a kid. It was his My Way CD. So
that was already out before this. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think She's All That. That might have been the first time I saw him.
Yeah, he's like on the intercom. Is he the guy? Is that the one where he's on the intercom the whole time?
He's the DJ. He's like he's the one that like DJs the prom and everything.
Yeah.
Like, so he's like one of the but again, kind of ancillary to the story.
And of course, people went to go see it because Usher. At that time he was just popping like.
Oh yeah,
still is. Did the Super Bowl, man?
Yeah,
that's right. Well, the last one I want to talk about came out in the same year, and it's it's different but similar. And I love this movie too, and that's Disturbing Behavior.
You can't talk about one without the other.
And they do feel very like double feature esque, don't they? And they came out the same year, and it takes place in school, and this time it's more. Is it students versus students and faculty like in this one? I forget like how many people are really included in this.
It's more of students versus faculty because it's the faculty are taking the students. So then they're against those students, but it all comes down to like that one like scientist type guy. And it's more of a paranoia of who's next. Because it's Nick Stahl, right? Nick Stahl knows that he's on the chopping block. He knows that everybody could go at any time, but
it's
nobody's really believing it. Yeah.
And I thought Katie Holmes looked great in this. I think this is she looked her best here.
Yeah, I remember. I remember the TV spots. I was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, that tummy. Whew.
It was funny because I never thought she would like when I watched Dawson's Creek. I didn't think she was like the greatest thing ever, like everybody did. But in this, I was like, okay, I see.
Yeah,
I'm right there with you, Garrett. I think this is the only thing where I think she's like hot. I never thought she was like hot in anything else, but for some reason, it's the whole look. Like it's that
the gothic look.
I'm like, oh, I could take that girl to an AFI concert.
'Cause- what it
He
is
has a-
because
Yeah.
him and I were in high school when all the girls dressed like this. That's why we're thinking,
Yeah.
like it seems like
Yeah.
a girl that would be in the school, right? So
This is
that's-
a
yeah.
stupid thing, but on the back of her truck, she has a No Effects sticker, and I always just thought that was so cool. I'm like, this girl likes No Effects. I want to hang out with her.
You're gonna bring
I'm
her
right
your
there.
Punkorama CD and see what
Yeah,
other bands
yeah.
she likes on it. Okay.
I'll say I know the finished product is nothing what they wanted to do, and I know the
Mhm.
original the original cut is supposed to be 10 times better than what they got.
Did you all ever
Yeah.
watch the deleted scene of the original ending, the alternate ending? It's
Mhm.
on the DVD, and it's so much better than the ending you get.
I may have, but I don't remember what it is.
And spoilers at the end of the regular movie, Nick Stahl pops up, as a teacher somewhere, and they're trying to set it up for like another movie. And this one, whenever Nick Stahl gets shot on the boat on the ferry when they're trying to leave, he actually dies. But as he's dying, he comes back to himself, and he makes a joke to his friends about, I guess this increasingly means I'll lose my chances of meeting Trent Reznor. And like,
What the
I'll-
that
yeah.
was the end.
yeah, and he was Nick Stahl again as he died, and that was the end of the movie. But I guess the studio was like, no, this needs to be a franchise, and cut that, and then reshot him going into the inner city to once again be one of these movie franchises like we've been talking about all night.
That would have been a great sequel we could be talking about today. Disturbing Behavior
Yeah.
2, right? And
I watched it.
Is it rated R? Because I want to say it's PG-13, right?
I think both it and the faculty are PG-13, aren't they? Or am I
thought,
wrong on
I
that?
thought the faculty was rated R, but I could
It
be
could
wrong.
be. I don't. Around that time, I know they were blurring the
Mhm.
borders on that with Scream, and everything was becoming real blurry.
Because do you remember there's another movie that came out that year called It was called Killing Mrs. Tingle, but they had to change it
Changed
to,
it.
to Teaching Mrs. Tingle.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I never saw. I remember that's a movie I've been wanting to see since it came out, and I've never
I
seen.
think I have it right over
It's
here.
good.
Katie Holmes
It's
is
not
in it,
bad.
right?
Yeah,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, I
the
think
guy
I've
from
seen that one too. Yeah.
and Barry Watson from Seventh Heaven.
Oh,
That's
wow.
So,
Seventh
I
Heaven.
was about to say you're Seventh Heaven guy.
Wow. I
Yeah.
definitely have Tingle now. Is that have another release or just a DVD?
Dude, I think it's just a DVD.
I got it on a combo pack with like Cursed and a few other movies on DVD where I'm like, I'm fine with all these on this.
Yeah. Interesting. I wonder if that's ever going to get a resurgence.
It's a Kevin Williamson movie, I believe, too.
Mhm.
I think that's the last
Yeah.
movie he directed. The only movie
Yeah.
he's directed, right?
Yeah,
Now
I
he's
think
doing
so.
the next
Until the
Scream.
new
Yeah.
Scream
Yeah.
is supposed to
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember much
Um,
about that one.
Never
Disturbing
seen it.
Behavior it was rated R. I'm seeing that
Oh,
here.
was it? Okay.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, this one, like Nick Stahl always has, like, he's got just such an odd, like, powerful energy. Like, he's played I've seen him in that Bully movie where he plays one of the most disgusting
Mhm.
characters I've ever seen in my life. But what a great performer. And then in something like this, he's, totally on the opposite side of that. But yeah, it sounds like, this movie, there's like a 2-hour cut that just got ripped to shreds.
I'd
And
love
the
to see that.
director thought about taking his name off the movie at the end of it all because the first test audience was happy with it, and then the second and third weren't. So they ended up changing everything because of those other tests that they did. Another example of a movie where it's like, oh man, if only, maybe it would have had that, life moving into, even if it didn't breed a sequel, maybe we would be talking about it more if the original intention had been put out there or at least made available.
Yeah, and I think that footage is gone because I think they've tried to release it different like special labels have tried to release it. Same with like the Crow City of Angels. I know that there's like a much better cut out there that they just can't get.
Yeah. I was reading about it today, and it was like he tried to. At one point, they had the deleted scenes, and they were going to let him put together his cut for a DVD or a Blu-ray, and then they stopped him partway through. You can still watch the scenes individually, but I don't think the quality is really there. So yeah, I think you're right, Cody. It's one of those where it's like we've lost it. Yeah. Sad.
Very interesting.
I
Yeah.
gotta say one more thing about Disturbing Behavior. I was talking earlier about the faculty having a good soundtrack. This soundtrack is phenomenal. You got Harvey Danger with Flagpole City. You got The Flies. That was all over MTV. This one has the better soundtrack of the two if you're doing the comparisons. I still rock it to this day on car trips and stuff.
So we have to be in agreement, but we're all fans of Disturbing Behavior as well then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, this one's fun. Yeah, I mean, I'd probably love it even more if I got to see. I would imagine the director's cut would be even better. You know, just I like a little more story, like to just kind of sell everything. But oh yeah, another great character actor, William Sadler. I just love him in everything. He's so strange here with that bizarre accent, but it's like I'll take it. I'll take all you got.
What book is it he's reading in this? Is it Slaughterhouse-Five? Because he always asks him.
I think that's what he's reading, right?
Yeah, and who wrote?
It is Slaughterhouse-Five, I think.
Slaughterhouse-Five. I can't remember because Vonnegut. He's like,
Vonnegut.
You like Vonnegut, lunch boy?
Yeah.
He calls it. I always love that line.
And he's like a little smarter than he kind of leads on, you know, sort of like doesn't want to get caught up in the whole thing, so kind of playing dumb a little bit. Yeah, it's a really nice little touch.
I love him in that.
Yeah. So I mean, we went through 10. We've been talking almost 2 hours, and you know, it's really cool because I'm glad that we kind of all did this together because I think we all had different things and memories and you know about these movies and what we think of them, and I think it was a pretty cool list. And you know, it touches, like we said, the connection is it has to do with you know school or high school or something like that, and you know, school's out for summer, so I wanted to make sure to kind of do this and tell you guys about these kind of movies that you can watch during the summer here. But there was so many more that we could have talked about, and I know as soon as we're done this, people are gonna leave down below other ones that we didn't mention, which again I want you to, because I love this subgenre and I want to know if there are other things out there that maybe I haven't seen, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way. But I did throw like a couple out here, and I can even let you guys just throw out, like, we don't have to go crazy into them, but ones that people should maybe check out. Like one I have in here it's called Monday Morning. It's from like 1988. MVD put out a Blu-ray. I think it was the first time it's ever been on physical media. I did a review on it when I got it on my channel if you want to go check it out. But basically it's similar to this. It's kids new in school. He wants this other kid's girlfriend. The other kid doesn't want him, so he brings a gun to school. All things kind of go crazy. They end up in a classroom, and he kind of holds the whole class hostage and tries to explain to them that he's not guilty for accidentally shooting a teacher. So, I mean, there is a lot of the same elements here. The cops show up. They're, you know, trying to get the kids out of the classroom and stuff. But definitely one I think you guys should check out if you like this genre. Is do you guys have any that we didn't mention that you'd want to spit out here? I have a bunch over here too.
Foz, you're our guest.
Saying, did anybody ever see Teachers with Ralph Macchio? I was thinking about that.
Who's the other guy? The blonde guy, Nick Nolte, right?
Nick Nolte's the main star. Yeah. And then it has the guy from Empty Nest as like the crazy teacher.
Are you talking about the old guy who from Babes in Toyland?
Oh, he's in this too?
Is it?
Yeah, he's from Empty Nest. He's like the old guy. He plays like the bad guy.
Empty Nest, yeah.
Barnaby.
I love him in this movie.
Yeah.
The Ralph Macchio and his friend in this, it always makes me relate it to this, what we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that has a Blu-ray. I have it from, I think it's like Olive Films maybe. But yeah, Teachers is cool. I forgot about that one.
What was the movie where Billy Blanks is like a janitor?
Oh, dude, that's a great movie. That's
Showdown.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah.
I love that movie.
And that guy plays Raphael in the Ninja Turtle movies, because I met him a couple years ago, and he was telling me the story about that.
Showdown's a great one. That's MVD put that out as well, I think. And that's a cool movie. It's like kind of Karate Kid-esque. His martial arts in the school, and Billy Blanks is the janitor, and he wants him to teach him martial arts. And then at the end, they fight in like this bar, like in some kind of like tournament type thing or whatever. Yeah, that's a cool one, man. I would recommend that to you guys for sure.
I have to mention this. Whenever I was in junior high and I watched that movie, there was a kid in there. There's a scene where he had written on a t-shirt that said "Kill yourself," and the principal looks at him and goes, "Did your parents ever have any kids that lived?" And I always thought that was such a weird, funny scene that I really wanted to make a shirt that said "Kill yourself," but obviously I never could.
Yeah.
I don't think you could even walk out of your house with that shirt on nowadays. You wouldn't
That'd be a
able to
rough
My
one.
mother would have killed me.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. By the time you just left the door. A couple I have here, I'll just spit out. A movie called 315. I put Cutting Class on here. It's it's kind of like that horror-esque type semi-slasher, I guess you would say, with Brad Pitt. That's kind of what it's known for. Cool movie. I think it's a made-for-TV movie called Brotherhood of Justice, and you should see the cast on this. It's Keanu Reeves, Kiefer Sutherland, Lori Loughlin, Billy Zane, and it's about these people that go into a school to try to. They're kids, but it's almost like a 21 Jump Street. They're like cops, and they go into the school to try to restore order in there, and they end up fighting with the gang members and stuff like that. So they act as students. But that's a cool movie too, Brotherhood of Justice. It's great cast, and I think that's a fun.
Always like that one.
Yeah, I want to see that. That's only on VHS or that's only on DVD, right?
Yeah, if it is that's what I have it on. So if it doesn't have an upgrade, then it's definitely on a DVD for sure.
I saw that on Tubi. It's on Tubi as well. But the movie I was talking about was Only the Strong. Is that a school movie?
Only Strong. Yeah. Okay.
I've never seen it.
Okay.
I've never seen it, but I know what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah. It looks really cool. It's on Max, but it looks pretty good. But I thought I remember watching the trailer, and it looks like he's like in school teaching people martial arts.
Cool.
To stop a gang. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. It's from 1993. So about back when those ninja movies were coming out,
Hey, Dave.
Yeah, I mean, Foz mentioned earlier. I think it was Foz, maybe it was Davey mentioned the Karate Kid, which again, there's a lot of school stuff in there with Johnny's gang and Daniel being the new kid. So I guess in a weird way, it does kind of trickle into what we were talking about, and then they end up fighting at the end and at the tournament. And obviously, it's one of my favorite movies of all time. So I want to give it a little bit of a shout out. And the only other one I threw out here was 3 O'Clock High, which, it takes place in school, and it's kind of like an edgier John Hughes type movie. So it's a little bit on the comedic side, but it's almost like kind of a dark comedy because there is, a lot of elements in it that it's a pretty rough movie, right? Like this kid works for the paper, and what's his name? Jesus, Crisp from
Kindergarten Cop.
What is his name? I met him too.
What was it?
I can't remember his name now. But he's the bully, and he comes into school, and he's new in school, and he's like this bully. This kid's trying to like interview him for the paper, and the kid gets all pissed and basically says, "I'm going to beat you up at 3 o'clock." And then it goes through the kid's whole day, like trying to lead up to 3 o'clock, where he's like trying to avoid this fight because he's like, "I'm going to get killed." So it goes through his whole day. It's really cool because he does all this stuff to try to get him to try to like get himself in trouble, so like he doesn't have to leave at 3 o'clock and all this other stuff. And he then hires this other bully kid to like help him. He like pays him off to like get this guy out and stuff. It's an awesome movie. A little bit, it's not as edgy or anything as this, but it's a fun as hell flick for sure.
Yeah, and I was telling you guys,
just the way it's shot is amazing.
Yeah, and I was telling you guys backstage where this was produced by Steven Spielberg, and he wanted to do his Karate Kid, and he let the director, kind of do what he wanted because he was busy doing what he was doing, and he wanted a Karate Kid movie, but this guy was a huge Martin Scorsese's fan, so he was kind of making it because you watch it, there's a lot of like elements of a Martin Scorsese movie in it. So when he finally saw the movie, Steven Spielberg, he's like, "No, this is not what I wanted." And he took his name off of it. So that's why I don't think it did very well when it came out, and that's why you don't really hear about it much. So I thought that was pretty interesting. It's on the special features of that Shout Factory thing. So it's a pretty cool watch if you guys have the Shout Factory release. They talk about.
I got it, but I haven't seen that special feature.
Yeah. It's good. And then if you guys ever seen Fist Fight with Ice Cube and Charlie Day?
Oh,
it's basically this, but a comedy. It came out like 2017.
It was around the time of like Ride Along.
Yeah, it is exactly the plot of this movie, but teachers. So it's like Charlie Day's trying to get out of this fight with Ice Cube, who's his teacher, and he's like going through all these different things. It's exactly like this, just more of a laugh out loud comedy kind of like.
Yeah,
it's a fun watch. Man. Yeah,
I'll have to check that one out for sure. I mean, I've learned a couple that I need to check out here just tonight, and I think we all have. to some element, because we just threw out there probably like 15, 16 movies for everybody to check out if they haven't. But man, this was a great time. I know we wanted to get some kind of collab going. I think this is kind of the perfect mix. And especially, you know, with me and Cody, like we've been overdue to get another Rad Dudes episode in the books here.
Yeah.
So anything Davey or Foz, anything you guys got coming up, either with new Movie Punks or on your own channel that you guys want to talk about?
Maybe take it away, buddy.
Yeah, so if this airs on the first Saturday of July, that'll be our next episode of Movie Punks. So we go live at 8 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to be covering The Return of the Living Dead, which I'm so pumped to talk to Foz about that one and get that conversation going. And then, you know, every Wednesday at 10 p.m. Eastern, I'm doing Late Night with the Davey. So going live, you know, every Wednesday. And I've got a Child's Play franchise ranking coming up. I'm going to be covering the Evil Dead series coming up here pretty soon, because I'm really passionate about those movies. And that's pretty much all I've got planned so far, other than, you know, random collaborations here and there.
So guys, watch Movie Punks tonight, because I know you're watching this. You're watching this as soon as it's premiering in the morning on
Double
Saturday.
dose.
So tonight, watch them. And also,
if you want a double dose of Movie Punks, tune in.
I also want to shout out. Davey has a cool show that he does stream with his wife. It's called Kate and
Movie Date with Davey and Kate.
That's it. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, so my wife and I go live twice a month, and we just talk about it's a discussion about a movie that we both are like very familiar with and that we love a lot. So it's kind of limited because, you know, we have to have a whole bunch of knowledge, each one of us, about the film, but we bounce around from like horror, comedy. We just did the 1995 film Friday with Ice Cube and Chris Tucker. That's one of our favorites. We've also been covering like the Scream series lately. That's my wife's favorite horror series. So yeah, that's really fun just to get in the chat and just kind of like what we did here tonight, where we talk about our memories and then we kind of cover some categories for the film and just let it be like a, you know, relatively chill stream of consciousness discussion.
Yeah, they have a great 10 Things I Hate About You one. That's kind of where we connected.
There we go.
That was that one.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly where we connected. Yeah, that's a fun one for sure.
Nice. Now, I guess I can drop it now. This will be the exclusive. I can tell you the next Rad Dudes episode. I can tell you the theme. It's going to be called Odd Couples, and we're going to talk about all the weirdest buddy cop movies we can find. The ones of the weirdest of the weird, and we're going to talk about all those ones where cops are teaming up with dogs and teaming up with aliens and teaming up with grandmothers,
T-Rexes,
teaming up with T-Rexes. The weirdest of the weird.
Kids,
We're going to talk about that, and it's going to be called Rad Dudes versus Odd Couples. So it'll be one to keep your eye on for, and it should be coming out probably in the next couple of weeks. And we'll be live when we do that. So, but guys, it was awesome having you guys on. This has been super fun. Again, like I said, I've been wanting to talk about this weird subgenre of movies for so long, and I just think this was just a nice way to kind of put it out there. And hopefully, people that haven't seen a lot of this stuff, it'll open some doors to a lot of movies that maybe they haven't been able to check out. So, guys, thank you again. Appreciate it as always. This is Garrett at Born to Be Rad, and like always, stay
nostalgic.